What a qualifying! The Australian Grand Prix session is done and McLaren has absolutely dominated, locking out the front row. Lando Norris snatches the first pole position of the season, kicking things off in style. Meanwhile, my prediction about Charles Leclerc? Yeah, that's aged terribly, but what did today's session really tell us? Well, in this video, we're diving into the key takeaways and data analysis from qualifying, who impressed, who struggled, and what does this mean for the race? Yep, qualifying is over, and it is a front-row lockout for McLaren. Max Verstappen has recovered perfectly to be lining up in third place, showing what I have previously said, you can never count Max out. The midfield is looking incredibly close as well, and honestly, I am just glad F1 is officially back. The first qualifying session of the year took place under very warm conditions, as the air temperature was over 32 degrees Celsius at the beginning of the session, which is the complete opposite of what is expected for the Grand Prix on Sunday at Albert Park. As usual, there was a lot of circuit evolution, which is evident when you take a look at all of the lap times set by pole sitter Lando Norris in Q1 versus Q3. Let's now compare his first qualifying lap to his pole position lap time to see where the differences were as the circuit evolved during the session. When you look at this lap, you can immediately see through the first couple of corners how Lando Norris in Q3 has more grip and can attack the track a lot harder compared to his first run in Q1. Through turn 1 in Q1, Lando Norris carries a minimum apex speed of 188 km per hour, but in Q3, Norris carries over 200 km per hour, showing already how much more committed he is to attacking the track. You can also see that on the exit of turn 3 and turn 4, Norris can very quickly get back up to speed as he has a lot more grip and traction. Not only that, but you can also see in Q3 how much more deployment Lando Norris is using compared to Q1. That can be seen in the middle part of the lap, as Norris's top speed and acceleration are much more aggressive in the final qualifying lap, as he is using all of the performance available to the McLaren car. That being said, at some of the heavy braking zones it looks as though Norris was actually slightly better in Q1, but that could have been because he was coming into the corners with slightly less aggression, leading to him maybe finding it easier to find some time. Overall, between the start of Q1 and the end of Q3, Lando Norris improved his lap time by 1 full second. The pole position lap time from 2025 is 9/10 of a second faster than the pole position lap time from 2024. So, we've seen how the times improved during the session, but let's now take a look at the top speeds that the teams were able to reach. What can we see here? Well, what we can see is that actually, the fastest car in a straight line was the Red Bull, as Verstappen reached a top speed of 334 km per hour. This was very closely followed by the Racing Bulls, who reached a top speed of 333 km per hour. McLaren and Ferrari look like they could be the teams running with the most downforce, as both of them only reached 329 km per hour, potentially showing that they are preparing more for a wet race than a dry race, whereas Verstappen and Red Bull are looking more towards a dry configuration. In general, though, the majority of teams are either hitting 331 or 332 km per hour in qualifying. Briefly, I want to talk about some of the rookies. Oliver Bearman has had a very difficult start to life in F1. The Haas driver crashed in FP1, he couldn't go out in FP2, then in FP3 he dropped the car into the gravel, and in qualifying he had a gearbox failure, meaning that he is starting a potentially wet race in Melbourne with the least amount of practice possible at this circuit. As for Gabriel Bortoleto, it could not have been any more different for him, as he has impressed a lot of people. He has not only out-qualified teammate Nico Hülkenberg on debut, but he also eliminated the Red Bull of Liam Lawson and the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli. But we will be talking about Liam Lawson and Kimi Antonelli very shortly. If you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and talk about Racing Bulls and Williams. For Racing Bulls, it was an incredible start to the season, as Yuki Tsunoda is lining up in 5th place on the grid, and Alex Albon in the Williams is next to him in 6th place. For both of these teams, they find themselves ahead of both Ferrari cars, as well as Liam Lawson in the Red Bull and Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Let's be honest, for Yuki Tsunoda, he cannot be any happier about this and probably is happy he didn't get the call to Red Bull. Because, let's be honest, the Red Bull seat is a curse for anyone whose name is not Max Verstappen. But how did Tsunoda outqualify Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari? Well, let's compare both of their Q3 lap times. When you look at both of these laps, Leclerc actually has the edge over Tsunoda for the majority of the lap. In general, Leclerc was carrying more minimum apex speed and was later on the brakes. That being said, Tsunoda had more top speed at the middle portion of the lap. However, Leclerc lost out in the last corner as he looks to have potentially made a mistake, gone deep, and gotten a bad exit from that final corner. For Racing Bulls, it looks like they potentially opted for a bit less downforce, so if the race is wet, it will be interesting to see what they can actually do. For Mercedes, it was a disaster day for Kimi Antonelli, as he was eliminated in the first part of qualifying. However, it looks as though Antonelli suffered floor damage at turn 6 as he ran wide. Teammate George Russell, however, is lining up in 4th place on the grid, which he can be very happy about as he is ahead of both Ferrari cars. Comparing Russell's lap to Lando Norris's, it looks as though Russell loses out against Norris on traction at a lot of the corners. Norris tends to get a better run on the exit of the corners. For Red Bull, it was a very mixed day. Liam Lawson spent plenty of time off track, while Max Verstappen is in 3rd place. For Ferrari, it was a bit of a disappointment, but they were able to use all tires for a long time, showing that they have great tire wear. However, that does not translate into one-lap pace, and they look like they lack grip early on. Finally, for McLaren, it was a perfect start to the season as they are starting in 1st and 2nd place on the grid. Lando Norris just edged out Oscar Piastri to start on pole position. McLaren looked to be running more downforce, which is ideal if the race is wet. They have pretty much left the rest of the field behind. Qualifying was intense, but now the real question is, what's going to happen in the race? If the track stays dry, we might have a good idea, but if the rain starts pouring, anything could happen. And honestly, I have absolutely no clue, but that's exactly what makes it so exciting. What do you think will go down in the Grand Prix? Will we see surprises, chaos, or a masterclass in wet weather driving? Drop your predictions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching. Race day is going to be epic.